Hello, my friends, and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. I have here an article from Sputnik where we have the Russian spy chief, intel chief, security chief, however you prefer to name this person from the Russian Foreign Intelligence Services. So this is Director Sergei Naryshkin. And Sergei Naryshkin was interviewed, and he is going to give us a few pieces of information, not necessarily true, because sometimes you can't really verify if someone's statements are true. You don't have access to really what's going on behind the scenes, but you can see some manifestations of whatever this person is saying, and you put them against them and say, okay, is this fitting that narrative or is not fitting that narrative? And I have to tell you that it goes without saying that what this intel chief, Russian intel chief, says is true. Two things. One, the Western security services, which is MI6 or CIA, are training Ukrainians for subversive actions in Russia. That is a basic ABC 1, 2, 3 in a war. And the second one, he claims that the Western security services, at the command of the politicians, try to obviously create a revolution or spark a revolution in Russia to overthrow the current system, democratically elected government of Putin and so on. That's not surprising. It's just that he comes and says it out loud. I've been saying this for 2 years, and I'm pretty sure other people reached the same conclusion. These guys are not to destroy Ukraine. They are to destroy, the other guys are to destroy Russia. That's the other way around. And again, you can look at the symptoms: NATO expansion towards a country and bringing missiles close to that country. That should be one defining reason to put things together and agree that NATO challenged and, I don't want to say attacked, but challenged, that is, provoked the Russians. These guys are telling us that Russia invaded Ukraine unprovoked. That is a perversion of the truth. Why? The evidence is over there. I made numerous videos on that one, and I will not get into that in this one. So Sputnik: West training Ukrainian sabotage groups against nuclear power plants in Russia. This is the first point. Intel chief. Western security services, primarily UK intelligence services MI6, are training Ukrainian sabotage groups for provocations against nuclear power plants in Russia. Russian Foreign Intelligence Service SVR Director Sergei Naryshkin said in an interview with Sputnik. Now remember, these guys, the intelligence community, runs a country together with the military. Why? Because if you put together all the groups or interests, or let's say power groups that supposedly are in our society, which will start with politicians, supposedly elected officials, they are in charge. That's how they say. The mass media being powerful into changing people's opinion and so on. And the business community, these are the main ones. Business community, that is a businessman, like Musk, like, I'm just saying, Zuckerberg, like this guy with Amazon. These are the ones that we see. I'm not talking about the big bankers that we don't know who they are. Not the JP Morgan, not those guys. There are others. So these guys is the business community. These guys are the billionaires who influence the politicians who supposedly we vote for. And we vote for, but they are placed in front of us by those guys to vote for. And then the mass media, who's also in the hands of the big industrial financial interests. So those guys, remember, those guys, and you put the military, you put the oppressive apparatus, which is the police, FBI, CIA, military. We call these guys defenders, a keeper of harmony and the laws, which is true. But in this context, they are just used by those guys. Now they allow themselves to be used because actually they are the strongest link in all this chain. It's not the politicians, it's not the mass media, and it's not the business community or leaders or billionaires. Why? Because none of the three that I mentioned can eliminate the other one. But the other one easily can win against the other three, which is the guys with guns. The guys with guns, which are the FBI, CIA, NSA, plus the military industrial complex, which is in this case just put the military. These guys potentially can take out those guys just like this. The other guys cannot take these guys out. Because if these guys make a law against them, these guys can come and destroy their law. It is not vice versa. If the military wants something, the other guys can make how many laws they want. These guys can round them up in 25 minutes operation. Or CIA or FBI. Why? They got the guns. The same with these Musks, and these guys are allowed to function around us and tell us what's good for us and what's not good for us, and they appoint and they're very interested. The military shows up at their door, or FBI or CIA, with legal documents signed by a judge. So you're going to see who actually potentially is in charge, and I think they're really in charge. Not only in the United States of America, in any country, whenever you have the gun in a debate, you will win the debate. So let's go to this one. So we have this director, Chief Naryshkin, and he's going to give us some examples, he said, and he's also going to tell us what the end goal is with MI6 and others in Russia. And I'm quoting, "I can give examples when Western security services, primarily British MI6, train Ukrainian sabotage and reconnaissance groups whose plans include carrying out provocations at nuclear power plants in the Russian Federation." Now, I don't know if he's talking about Zaporozhye nuclear power plant or many other plants, because he uses plural. Naryshkin said, according to reports in 2023, Russian reports, Ukrainian sabotage and reconnaissance groups that were targeting some nuclear power plants were neutralized in Russia. The West is, and this is the most important thing, which we knew, but it's nice that someone comes and says it. The West is thinking of organizing a revolution in Russia, but will not succeed. Believe me, it's not only the Americans trying to create that or the Western countries. There are others trying to do within each and every country, like the Americans try to control France. France tries to control Germany. Great Britain tries to control everyone else, and so on. They are at it. When they tell you that these guys are allies, no, there's a war. There's a war. They're allies as much as they have to go and gang on another country, another interest, where they try to destroy and then, or at least kneel, and then take that country's resources. All of those resources being distributed by the guy in charge, which is Al Capone in the surface. So at the first sight, you say, it's Al Capone. This thing's behind Al Capone. Al Capone is just a means. For some, it's a means to a goal or a name, whatever. For others, behind. And I'm quoting Naryshkin, is that what his name is? "I can say with confidence that the Western, especially American intelligence community, sincerely believes in the power of its technology to overthrow the so-called unwanted regimes." I have no doubt with that one. Indeed, they are responsible for the tragedy of the so-called Arab Spring with its chaos, thousands and thousands of deaths and devastation. Western countries, especially the United States, are also responsible for the tragedy of the Ukrainian Euromaidan, end quote. We know that one. The inter-chief emphasized. He said the West thought it could do the same to Russia. Of course, none of this worked or will work. I don't know if it will not work. So far, it did not work. How did they try? Each and every, how should I put it, secret police or has in other countries people called spies, people who are over there, agents, undercover, living their lives as normal citizens in those countries. And they have assignments to infiltrate certain kind of positions and their help now and then, if possible, with the door opening. Sometimes with financial help, but it's easy to track. Door opening, that's what they do. And then they're activated when they want to paralyze the country. And then you have a little spontaneous Maidan revolution or Arab Spring. You activate these guys together with the mass media, and they are in the police, they are in the governmental institutions, they are politicians, all these guys. And you activate them, and together at one point they start trying to destabilize that country and then obviously change the regime. That's how it works. But you have to use the population. And how do you use the baboons? Through mass media. And the mass media is the same. You have mass media that is really clearly on the side of the outsiders, or you have within the state-owned media or important media outlets, you have a few who shape the narrative. And with time, the population's mentality, the baboons' mentality, will go the direction they want. What did they want with Russia? They thought that if they will destroy Russia economically, that is, making the Russians feel financial pain, no food, then that's the basic survival instinct that's going to kick in. I don't have food, I don't have shelter, protection, I will have to do something. I'm pushed in a corner. They didn't succeed with their 12 rounds of sanctions. Russia was prepared. They had their media over there. These guys from the West, they have their media inside Russia who pushes a certain kind of narrative. It seems like the other media worked harder and better than them, neutralized them. You had people that were activated and they were neutralized by the Russians. So it doesn't mean that they will not continue to try to take over that way of Russia, but they will also try to take over in the clear way, in the battlefield, even though they know that they have to work with the guys in Russia, not the guys fighting, because those guys could always potentially threaten a nuclear strike. And that's the end of the game. For everyone, end of the game. Now, they were going to try to push and maybe get to the point of changing the people in charge so they can prevent them from using real force against themselves, against the West. And if you have your infiltrated people in the Kremlin and the Duma and in the military, in the security service, you can achieve that if the order is given and they have the power. Because remember, Putin can have that little box with nuclear buttons, switches and all that. If that doesn't work, or if he's not given that in his face, he cannot do shit. Even if he initiated that order goes somewhere else. And if that is not approved by someone over there, the order doesn't go through. So let's say Putin says, let's launch a nuclear strike on, a military position in Ukraine. Launch it. And the generals over there that are supposed to, they receive the information. They don't go through with that. They say, no, that launch is not going to happen. Even those generals, if they give the order down, if those guys underneath will not do that, and on the contrary, shoot the general, that would not happen. And if you have a little revolution in that area, you neutralize Russia's capability to really deter the Western countries to attack them straight on. That's one thing. In the military, even if these guys are losing, the Russians, if they're losing, the Russians always will have the nuclear weapons, and they will have potentially 30 million of Russians potentially could be drafted and mobilized as a general mobilization. And they have weapons to provide them. So again, this is a calculated, this is a controlled war. And it's trying, each side tries to destroy the other one in the easiest way. The way that it doesn't create the biggest mess, which is create the head, change the head, put the right head, and it's going to make the decisions to give us Russia on the silver plate. And Naryshkin tries the same thing probably somewhere else, because that's his job, to protect your country. How do you protect your country? You can protect it by waiting for those guys or making the other guys, for instance, weak. How do you make them weak? Intervening in their countries and make sure that you control the political and the military, whatever you can control. By them being weak, they will not attack you. You control them. So yes, I have no doubt that MI6 and CIA and others are trying to destabilize and make a little revolution in Russia. But as of now, it did not work. And he says it or will not work. Well, Naryshkin, we don't have a crystal ball. And unless Naryshkin really controls the situation so good, which I don't know, in which he knows that these guys are far, far from being able to start a little revolution over there. That, or maybe he's just saying it to create a good feeling. Everybody's, yeah, man, we're good. Or maybe is that thing when you play dead, you pretend that, nothing to worry about, and actually these guys are coming over and they are increasing their pressure, because maybe Naryshkin is not Naryshkin, maybe Naryshkin is CIA-ishkin or MI6-ishkin. You don't know yet. Thank you very much for being with me again today. But that's the goal. Destroy a country without too much mess. Why? If you don't want to sweat, if you can win without sweating, it's better than winning with sweating, being punched back, and so on. Isn't it? I think so. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just.